Thinking, Fast and Slow, by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman, a pioneer in the science of decision-making, Daniel Kahneman is widely regarded as one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, whose groundbreaking work has reshaped our understanding of human thinking, decision-making, and judgment. His research has not only left a significant mark on the field of psychology but also crossed over into economics, earning him the prestigious Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 2002. Kahneman's insights have profoundly influenced both academia and real-world applications, from economics and business to healthcare and public policy. Early life and education. Born on March 5, 1934, in Tel Aviv, Israel, Kahneman's early years were spent in France, where his family moved shortly after his birth. The turmoil of World War II shaped his early experiences, particularly his understanding of human nature. After the war, Kahneman's family returned to Israel, where he completed his undergraduate studies in psychology and mathematics at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 1954. Kahneman's interest in psychology, particularly the workings of the human mind, blossomed during these formative years. He later pursued a PhD in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley, in 1961. His early research focused on the ways in which people perceive objects and how their cognitive processes shape their understanding of the world. The collaboration with Amos Tversky, one of the most pivotal moments in Kahneman's career, was his collaboration with fellow Israeli psychologist Amos Tversky, which began in the late 1960s. Their partnership produced some of the most important and influential work on human judgment and decision-making. Together, they explored how people make decisions under conditions of uncertainty and risk, and they challenged the long-standing assumption that humans are inherently rational beings who make decisions to maximize their outcomes. Kahneman and Tversky's research introduced the concept of cognitive biases, systematic errors in thinking that affect the judgments and decisions that individuals make. They identified numerous biases, such as the availability heuristic, where people overestimate the likelihood of events based on how easily examples come to mind, and the representativeness heuristic, where people make judgments based on how much something resembles a stereotype rather than on actual probabilities. Prospect theory, a breakthrough in decision science. In 1979, Kahneman and Tversky published one of their most influential works, Prospect Theory, an analysis of decision under risk. This paper revolutionized economics by providing a psychological explanation for decision-making that deviated from traditional models of rational choice. Prospect theory showed that people do not evaluate gains and losses equally. Losses have a more profound emotional impact than gains of the same size, a phenomenon known as loss aversion. This work became foundational in the field of behavioral economics, a branch of economics that integrates psychological insights into economic models. Kahneman and Tversky's findings helped explain why people often make irrational financial decisions, such as holding on to losing investments in the hope of avoiding losses or preferring a guaranteed small gain over a larger, riskier one, even when the latter offers a better chance of a positive outcome. Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. Although Amos Tversky passed away in 1996, Kahneman's contributions to the field continued to gain recognition. In 2002, Kahneman was awarded the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences for his pioneering work on prospect theory and for his contributions to behavioral economics. The Nobel Prize is typically awarded to economists, making Kahneman's win particularly significant as a psychologist. Kahneman's Nobel lecture highlighted the implications of his work, emphasizing how cognitive biases affect decision-making not just in individuals, but also in markets and policy. His research continues to shape economic models, particularly in the understanding of risk, uncertainty, and consumer behavior. Thinking, Fast and Slow. In 2011, Kahneman published Thinking, Fast and Slow, a comprehensive exploration of his life's work on human cognition and decision-making. The book delves into the two distinct modes of thinking that drive our choices, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and automatic. It governs most of our everyday decisions, relying on heuristics and biases to make quick judgments. System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and logical. It is used for more complex tasks that require conscious reasoning. Kahneman explains how these two systems interact, showing how much of our decision-making is influenced by unconscious biases that arise from System 1. He also highlights the limits of rational thought, as System 2 is often lazy or overwhelmed, allowing biases to go unchecked. Thinking, Fast and Slow became an international bestseller, praised for making complex psychological theories accessible to the general public. The book has had a lasting impact on fields as diverse as marketing, finance, and public policy, helping professionals understand the cognitive forces that influence decision-making. Legacy and continuing influence. Daniel Kahneman's contributions extend far beyond psychology and economics. His work has fundamentally changed how we understand human behavior, prompting us to recognize the limitations of our rationality and the pervasive influence of biases. Today, many organizations, from governments to businesses, apply behavioral insights to improve decision-making processes, often referred to as nudging. Kahneman's research underscores the importance of self-awareness in decision-making. By understanding the cognitive biases that drive us, we can make more informed, rational choices and avoid common pitfalls in judgment. As Kahneman himself noted, while we may never fully eliminate our biases, being aware of them is the first step toward making better decisions. In summary, Daniel Kahneman's life and work have profoundly shaped the fields of psychology and economics, making him one of the most influential thinkers of our time. His groundbreaking research continues to inspire new generations of scientists, economists, and decision-makers around the world, offering valuable insights into the complexities of human thought and behavior. Daniel Kahneman and the Transformation of Decision-Making, a deep dive into behavioral economics. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel laureate in economic sciences, is celebrated for his groundbreaking work in psychology and economics, particularly for his role in shaping the field of behavioral economics. His book Thinking, Fast and Slow synthesizes decades of research into how human beings think, reason, and make decisions. Kahneman's contributions have fundamentally altered the understanding of human judgment, shedding light on the psychological forces that shape our decisions in ways that diverge from traditional economic theories. In this blog, we will explore how Kahneman's work revolutionized behavioral economics, challenging the classical notion of human rationality and introducing concepts like cognitive biases, heuristics, and prospect theory. We will also examine how these ideas transformed our understanding of decision-making in various domains, from everyday life to public policy, challenging the classical economic model. Before Kahneman and his collaborator Amos Tversky introduced their research, economic models were predominantly based on the assumption that humans are rational actors. The classical theory, known as Homo economicus or rational agent theory, posited that individuals make decisions to maximize utility based on clear preferences and complete information. According to this view, human decisions should be consistent, logical, and predictable, driven by a desire to optimize outcomes. Kahneman and Tversky disrupted this model by showing that human decision-making often deviates from rationality. Their research revealed that cognitive biases, systematic errors in thinking, skew people's judgments, leading to decisions that do not always align with their best interests. This insight formed the foundation of behavioral economics, which integrates psychological principles into economic models to better reflect real-world decision-making. Cognitive biases and heuristics, the cornerstones of behavioral economics. At the heart of Kahneman's contributions is his exploration of cognitive biases and heuristics. Heuristics are mental shortcuts that people use to make quick decisions in complex situations. While these shortcuts can be useful in navigating the vast amount of information we encounter daily, they often lead to biased judgments. Kahneman and Tversky identified several key biases that influence decision-making. Availability heuristic. This bias occurs when people judge the probability of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. For instance, after hearing about a plane crash in the news, people might overestimate the likelihood of air travel accidents, even though flying is statistically much safer than driving. Representativeness heuristic. People tend to judge the likelihood of an event based on how much it resembles a stereotypical case. For example, when asked to guess whether someone is a librarian or a farmer based on personality traits, many people rely on stereotypical associations, ignoring statistical information about the prevalence of each occupation. Anchoring effect. This bias occurs when people rely too heavily on an initial piece of information, the anchor, when making decisions. In negotiations, for instance, the first price suggested often serves as an anchor that influences subsequent offers, regardless of its relevance. Kahneman's research illuminated how these and other biases distort decision-making, leading to systematic errors. In Thinking, Fast and Slow, he explains that these biases stem from two modes of thinking: System 1, which is fast, automatic, and intuitive, and System 2, which is slow, deliberate, and logical. Most decisions are made using System 1, which is prone to biases, while System 2 is often engaged for more complex, thoughtful decisions. However, System 2 can be lazy, allowing System 1 to dominate even in situations where careful thinking is required. Prospect theory, a new understanding of risk and uncertainty. One of Kahneman's most significant contributions to behavioral economics is prospect theory, developed with Amos Tversky in 1979. Prospect theory revolutionized the understanding of how people evaluate risk and uncertainty, providing an alternative to the classical expected utility theory, which assumed that individuals make rational choices based on the expected value of different options. Kahneman and Tversky demonstrated that people do not assess gains and losses in the same way. Their research revealed several key insights. Loss aversion. People feel the pain of losses more acutely than they experience the pleasure of gains. In other words, losing $100 is more emotionally impactful than gaining $100 is satisfying. This explains why individuals are often risk-averse and why they may reject fair gambles that offer equal odds of winning and losing. Framing effects. The way a decision is framed can dramatically influence the outcome. For instance, people are more likely to opt for a medical procedure if they are told it has a 90% survival rate than if they are told it has a 10% mortality rate, even though both descriptions convey the same information. This finding challenges the notion that people's choices are consistent regardless of how information is presented. Reference points. Rather than making decisions based solely on absolute outcomes, individuals assess potential gains and losses relative to a reference point. This reference point often reflects the status quo or expectations, meaning people might be more willing to take risks to avoid a loss than to achieve an equivalent gain. Prospect theory has had profound implications across multiple fields, from economics and finance to public policy and healthcare. It helps explain phenomena such as the disposition effect, investors holding on to losing stocks for too long, and the endowment effect, people valuing things they own more than they would pay to acquire them. Behavioral economics in action, real-world applications. Kahneman's research has not remained confined to academia, it has been widely applied in various real-world contexts. Policymakers, businesses, and institutions have embraced behavioral insights to improve decision-making processes, often referred to as nudging, a concept popularized by behavioral economist Richard Thaler, who built on Kahneman's work. In public policy, for example, behavioral economics has been used to design programs that encourage people to save for retirement, reduce energy consumption, and make healthier lifestyle choices. By understanding the biases that influence decisions, policymakers can create environments that promote better outcomes without restricting individual freedom. For instance, automatically enrolling employees in retirement savings plans, with the option to opt out, significantly increases participation rates, leveraging the power of inertia and default options. In business, behavioral economics has shaped marketing strategies, product design, and customer experience. Companies use insights into cognitive biases to guide pricing strategies, such as framing discounts in ways that appeal more to consumers' aversion to losses than their desire for gains. Kahneman's lasting legacy. Daniel Kahneman's work has transformed how we understand human thinking and decision-making, challenging long-held assumptions about rationality. His research revealed that people's judgments are not always logical or optimal, but are influenced by biases and heuristics that often operate outside conscious awareness. By bringing psychological insights into economics, Kahneman has made decision-making more human, helping individuals and institutions navigate the complexities of risk, uncertainty, and choice. The field of behavioral economics continues to evolve, with Kahneman's contributions serving as its cornerstone. His insights into cognitive biases, loss aversion, and the interaction between System 1 and System 2 thinking remain foundational to how we understand decision-making in the modern world. In the conclusion of Thinking, Fast and Slow, Kahneman acknowledges the limits of overcoming biases. While awareness of these cognitive traps can help, they are deeply ingrained in human thinking. However, by understanding how our minds work, we can make better choices, not just as individuals, but also as societies. Kahneman's work leaves us with a powerful message. True understanding of human behavior lies not in the idealized notion of rationality, but in accepting and managing the imperfections of our cognitive processes. This realization has forever changed the fields of psychology, economics, and beyond, reminding us that even in our irrationality, there is wisdom to be found. Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow is one of the most influential books of the 21st century, offering profound insights into how we think and make decisions. This book was written as a culmination of decades of psychological research into human cognition, judgment, and decision-making. Kahneman, a psychologist and Nobel laureate in economic sciences, sought to explore the inner workings of the human mind, focusing on the two distinct modes of thinking that drive our decisions: fast and intuitive thinking, and slow, deliberate reasoning. The primary purpose of Thinking, Fast and Slow is to introduce readers to these two systems, commonly referred to as System 1 and System 2, and to illustrate how they interact to influence the choices we make in everyday life. The book delves into the biases, heuristics, and errors that arise from these modes of thinking, showing us how our minds work in ways that are not always rational or optimal. Why Kahneman wrote the book, A Journey into the Human Mind. At its core, Thinking, Fast and Slow was written to help people understand the mental shortcuts and cognitive biases that shape our perceptions and decisions. Kahneman had spent much of his career studying judgment and decision-making, often in collaboration with his late colleague Amos Tversky. Their research revealed that human thinking is not always rational or based on pure logic, as traditional economic models once assumed. Instead, our thinking is subject to numerous psychological influences that can lead to both helpful and flawed decisions. Kahneman's motivation for writing the book was to make this complex body of research accessible to a general audience. He wanted to provide readers with a comprehensive understanding of how our minds function when they get things right and, more often, when they go astray. By highlighting the patterns of human thinking, Kahneman aimed to equip readers with the knowledge to make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. The structure of the book reflects this goal. Kahneman walks the reader through the various components of decision-making, from the basic mechanics of how we think to the cognitive biases that influence us. Along the way, he provides vivid examples, real-life experiments, and fascinating stories to illustrate how these processes play out in the real world. The two systems of thinking, fast and slow. The central thesis of Thinking, Fast and Slow revolves around the dual process theory of cognition, which Kahneman simplifies into two systems of thinking. These two systems, System 1 and System 2, serve as the foundation for understanding how we process information, solve problems, and make decisions. System 1, Fast and Intuitive. System 1 is the brain's fast, automatic, and intuitive mode of thinking. It operates effortlessly, often without conscious awareness, and is responsible for the quick judgments and reactions that guide much of our daily life. When you see a familiar face in a crowd or quickly determine whether something is dangerous, System 1 is at work. This system relies on heuristics, which are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that help us make quick decisions with limited information. While System 1 is efficient, it is also prone to errors, because it relies heavily on intuition and immediate impressions rather than careful analysis. This system is the source of many cognitive biases that skew our thinking, such as the availability heuristic, judging the likelihood of events based on how easily examples come to mind, and the anchoring effect, relying too heavily on an initial piece of information when making decisions. System 2, slow and deliberate. In contrast, System 2 is slow, effortful, and deliberate. It requires conscious thought and attention, engaging when we face complex problems or need to make carefully reasoned decisions. This system is responsible for tasks like solving mathematical equations, planning, and evaluating evidence. System 2 is the more logical and rational mode of thinking, but it requires more cognitive resources, such as focus and energy. Because System 2 is slow and taxing, people often avoid engaging it unless absolutely necessary. As a result, System 1 often dominates our thinking, even in situations where System 2 would be more appropriate. Kahneman describes how these two systems interact in various scenarios, from everyday decisions like choosing what to eat for lunch to high-stakes situations like investing in the stock market or making legal judgments. The interplay between System 1 and System 2 is a key theme throughout the book, illustrating how our minds toggle between intuition and reason based on the context and demands of the situation. The role of cognitive biases and heuristics. One of the main reasons Kahneman wrote Thinking, Fast and Slow was to highlight the cognitive biases and heuristics that stem from System 1 thinking. While these shortcuts allow us to navigate the world quickly and efficiently, they can also lead to systematic errors in judgment. For example, Kahneman introduces the concept of the availability heuristic, which leads people to overestimate the probability of events that are more easily recalled from memory. This is why people tend to fear rare but dramatic events, such as plane crashes or terrorist attacks, more than more common but less memorable risks, like car accidents or heart disease. Another bias explored in the book is confirmation bias, which causes people to seek out information that supports their existing beliefs while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. This bias is particularly relevant in today's world of social media and online echo chambers, where people are constantly exposed to information that reinforces their worldview. Kahneman also discusses the anchoring effect, a bias in which people rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive when making decisions. This effect can have significant consequences in contexts such as negotiations, where the initial price offered can influence the final outcome, regardless of its accuracy. By exposing these and other biases, Kahneman encourages readers to question their own thinking and to recognize the limitations of human judgment. Understanding how System 1 thinking can lead us astray is a crucial step toward making more rational and informed decisions. Why we need both systems. The complementary nature of fast and slow thinking. Although System 1 is often blamed for errors and biases, Kahneman emphasizes that both systems of thinking are essential. System 1 allows us to navigate the world quickly and efficiently, making decisions in real time without the need for constant deliberation. Without System 1, everyday life would be impossible, as we would be paralyzed by the need to think through every single decision. System 2, on the other hand, is necessary for more complex and thoughtful decision-making. It is the system that allows us to plan, analyze, and evaluate situations that require more than just gut reactions. However, System 2 has its own limitations, such as being prone to laziness and cognitive overload, which is why it does not always take over when needed. The key takeaway from Thinking, Fast and Slow is that both systems have their strengths and weaknesses. The challenge is knowing when to rely on System 1 and when to engage System 2. By becoming aware of our cognitive processes, we can improve our decision-making by recognizing when our intuition might be leading us astray and when it is time to slow down and think more carefully. The broader implications of Kahneman's work, the insights provided in Thinking, Fast and Slow, extend beyond individual decision-making. Kahneman's research has had a profound impact on fields such as behavioral economics, public policy, healthcare, and finance, where understanding human biases can lead to better outcomes. In behavioral economics, Kahneman's work has challenged the traditional economic models that assume humans are rational agents. By incorporating psychological insights, economists and policymakers can design interventions that nudge people toward better decisions without limiting their freedom. For example, automatic enrollment in retirement savings plans has been shown to increase participation rates by taking advantage of people's tendency to stick with default options. In healthcare, understanding cognitive biases can lead to better medical decision-making by helping doctors and patients avoid common pitfalls such as overestimating the effectiveness of treatments or underestimating risks. Conclusion: a guide to understanding our own minds. Daniel Kahneman wrote Thinking, Fast and Slow to give readers a deeper understanding of how their minds work. By breaking down the two systems of thinking, fast and intuitive versus slow and deliberate, Kahneman offers a roadmap for recognizing the mental shortcuts that guide our decisions and the biases that can lead us astray. His ultimate goal is to equip readers with the tools to make better decisions in both their personal and professional lives. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with information and choices, understanding the dynamics of fast and slow thinking has never been more important. By learning to recognize when we should trust our intuition and when we should engage in deeper reflection, we can navigate life's complexities with greater clarity and wisdom. Thinking, Fast and Slow serves as a guide to mastering this balance, reminding us that while our minds are imperfect, they are also capable of extraordinary insight. Exploring the Two Thinking Systems, the main premise of Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow has revolutionized the way we understand human decision-making. At the core of the book lies a profound premise: humans use two distinct modes of thinking to navigate the world. These two systems, referred to as System 1 and System 2, govern everything from everyday choices to complex problem-solving, and they often work in tandem to shape our decisions, behaviors, and actions. Kahneman's exploration of these systems unveils the inner workings of our minds and highlights how our thought processes can be both remarkable and flawed. Introducing the two systems of thinking, System 1 and System 2, the central thesis of Thinking, Fast and Slow is based on the dual process theory of cognition. Kahneman simplifies this complex psychological model into two systems, which he terms System 1 and System 2. These systems are not separate parts of the brain, but rather different modes of thinking that operate within us, each with its own characteristics, strengths, and weaknesses.